Hi everyone, welcome back to NLTI's official YouTube channel for the 3-year LLB preparation. I'm Anish Gupta, the founder of National Law Training Institute and currently in my final year at the National Law School, Bangalore. So as you can see from this slide, today's video is going to be very important. NLSAT is just around the corner. It is scheduled for the 26th of April 2026 and counting today we have around 70 odd days left for your preparation, for you to go that extra mile into your preparation and get a wonderful rank to get into the National Law School Bangalore. And very importantly, to get into the National Law School Bangalore, what you need to do is you need to understand the trends and patterns of this paper. And that can only be done by doing one thing, that is PYQ analysis. And in today's video, we are going to do exactly that. We are going to take up part A specifically of the NLSAT paper and we are going to decode it section by section, year after year. We'll start with 23, move on to 25 and move on and get done with the latest paper, that is NLSAT 2025. So this is the agenda for today's video. Stay tuned and I will be relying on a master compendium that NLTI has prepared and that goes by the name of this booklet, that is appendix to part A. This comprises previous year papers of NLSAT from year 2022 to year 2025 and I will be relying on this and the slides to guide you and help you understand the trends, the patterns and the expected questions for NLSAT 2026. Now, first things first, let's discuss what part A of this paper actually tests. So part A consists of 8 passages and 75 MCQs. So this has been the most consistent theme across all the NLSATs that have been conducted till date. 75 questions in part A divided into 8 passages. So this means approximately 9 to 10 questions per passage. And these 9 to 10 questions are based on 3 sections. That is your English comprehension or English language, also known as RC more popularly. Secondly, we have current affairs and general knowledge. Current affairs because it is based on recent contemporary events. And why general knowledge? Because sometimes static questions on general knowledge are also asked. And lastly, we have critical reasoning, also known as logical reasoning. Some core concepts of critical reasoning, some core topics of critical reasoning are always tested in NLSAT, and today we are going to discuss those high frequency, high scoring areas on which if you specifically focus more on the last 70 days, you have a great chance at scoring faster and scoring more in your NLSAT 2026. Every correct answer will give you a +1 mark. Each wrong or unattempted answer will give you a -0.25. So it's in the ratio of 1:4. So the key takeaway from these 2 points is that you have to attempt all the questions, because even if you get it wrong, you will get a -0.25. And if you are unsure about what the correct answer is and you leave it unattempted, you are still going to get a -0.25. So it is always better and it is always suggested that you go for a guesstimate, go for the most appropriate answer according to you in that situation. Even if you are able to attempt or eliminate just a couple of answer options and you have to choose between remaining 2, go for it, go with your instinct, because anyways you are going to get a negative if you leave it unattempted. So it's better that you at least attempt the question and take a chance at it. Questions are framed from passage-based comprehension but test all 3 skills. So at first glance, the paper comes across as a reading comprehension heavy paper, but if you read it deeply, analyze it closely, you will see that even though questions are in the form of reading comprehension, the 3 sections that are tested are English, GK and critical reasoning. Alright, so let's start with the previous year paper of 2023, that is NLSAT 2023. So in this paper, you had a total of 31 questions from the English comprehension section. You had around 23 questions from current affairs including GK and around 21 questions from critical reasoning. So I'll discuss the main topics or the areas that are asked in all 3 sections. But one thing to note today and here is that there was a strong emphasis on reading based inference with external awareness. So if you see in the RC section or the CR section, there was a lot of inference based questions. That is what is your key takeaway from the passage. There are 3 to 4 components of an author's argument. First is the premise, second is the assumption, third is the conclusion, and then the fourth one is your inference or your takeaway from the passage. So the paper was inference heavy. That it meant that you had to analyze what the author was trying to say and what is your understanding of the author's argument. Heavy use of very recent events and literary sources. For example, there were questions on the WFI Oversight Committee, women officers promoted to colonel rank. This was something that recently happened in 2023, that now women were also allowed to be promoted to colonel rank. So the Seattle case discrimination ban, which happened in February 2023, and a passage from a novel written by Salman Rushdie, that is Victory City 2023. So these are the types of passages that were asked in the paper of the NLSAT 2023. So now if we talk about the English section first, we have very diligently given you a breakdown of the types of questions that were asked in the English section specifically. So around 3 questions were there from the vocabulary section, and this vocabulary is not isolated. They will not ask you a question out of the box or out of the blue, that what is the meaning of zenith, what is the meaning of etc. of any difficult word. It is always contextual. For example, the word will be given in the passage, and then you will be asked to decode its meaning from the context in which it has been written. So 3 questions from vocabulary, around 2 questions from assumption, that is what is the assumption made by the author, around 4 questions on except. For example, the author would agree with all of the following except, or all of the things are true according to the passage except. And same in GK, which of the following is true, which of the following is incorrect, again a part of except. All of the things are true as big part of a GK, but except. 2 questions on strengthening and weakening. So what happens in strengthening and weakening? You first need to identify the author's argument, that this is the author's argument, and then you need to come up with statements which say all of the following statements strengthen or weaken except. Now around 2 questions were asked from CR core concept called strengthening and weakening. So what happens in strengthening is that you first need to identify the author's argument, that this is the argument made by the author. For example, social media should be banned for under 18 people. Now there will be 4 statements given to you, and the question would be, which of the following, if true, most strengthens the author argument? And mostly these statements are fact based on which you have to select that if this is true, this will most strengthen the author's argument. Now around 2 questions based on principal fact, around 7 questions based on perspective, and perspective is primarily of the author, that what is true in the author's perspective. Around 3 questions on main point. Main point is also around like the central idea of the passage, that this is the main point made by the author, or this is the central idea of the passage. Interesting bit to know is that around 10 questions were there on inference. So as I already told you in the beginning of this video, that inference assumed a lot of importance in this particular exam, that you had to understand the author's argument and the passage very deeply to answer the questions based on inference, because inference is not directly given in the passage. Inference is what you make of the passage. Inference is subjective to that extent. So unless you identify the author's argument properly or read the passage deeply, you will not be able to come to the correct inference. Around 7 were directly from the passage. For example, these questions are known as text-based. It can be GK, it can be which of the following is true as per the passage, for example. And now 5 questions based on purpose, that what is the primary purpose behind writing this passage. So a lot of times when author writes something, they always have a purpose behind it. For example, critiquing a recent social media ban that happened, critiquing a recent judgment that was passed, or critiquing a recent act or a legislation that was passed. So a lot of times questions on purpose are also asked, that what is the primary purpose of the passage, or what is the primary purpose behind authors writing this text. And lastly, around 7 questions on weakening the argument. So as I discussed strengthening, similarly, you first have to identify the author's argument, and then you have to identify the statement which most weakens the author's argument. This is similar to strengthening. Now, if we again talk about the English section, so the questions tested were from the logical conclusion. So if you go to question 54, let me go to question 54, and if you have the PYQ open with you, you should also go over the question with me. So let's see what passage was question 54 in. So the passage is about based on an article written by Geeta Jayaraj in the magazine Frontline. So these sources also become important for you, because now this passage will tell you that Frontline is a good resource for reading, and can be included in your daily reading habit. So this is a passage written by Geeta Jayaraj in Frontline, and the question 54 that directly came from it, this is a passage about a film that had come recently, and the question that comes from this passage is, which of the following would be the most fitting conclusion derived from the passage? So as I already told you, four parts of an argument or a passage. Premise is the stated fact, assumption is an unstated premise, conclusion is what the author is concluding or the main idea of the passage, and premise and inference is your main takeaway. So this is on the third part of an argument, that what is the main conclusion that you derive from the passage or what the author has concluded. Now around 4 to 5 questions are also on direct vocabulary, that is meaning of phrases and contextual vocabulary. Here I have given an example of question 11. Let's go over question 11. So question 11 is based on an article written in Bloomsbury, again a very reputed source, by Amiya Srinivasan on the right to sex. And 11th question, which comes from vocabulary, is which of the following most accurately explains the meaning of the author's statement that believe women is not an injunction to abandon this legal principle, at least in most cases, but a political response to what will suspect be its uneven application. So this is not an isolated vocabulary question. This is a very contextual question, and the author used a particular phrase, the author used a particular sentence, and now the passage and the question is asking you to discern or decode the particular meaning of the sentence or the words used by the author. So these are the types of questions that are asked in the paper, contextual vocabulary, and for you to understand and decode the meanings of certain phrases. Now let's go over question 60 as well, because it's a part of the vocabulary series. So what is question 60 about? So this passage is based on an article written by K. Balagopal on why not a separate UN charter against casteism, and this has been published in Deccan Chronicle. So the author uses a phrase here, that is internationalizing the issue, and let's see if we can locate what the author is meaning by internationalizing the issue. And the question number 60 that I am discussing is, what does the author mean by internationalizing the issue in the first passage or the first paragraph of the passage? Again, not an isolated question, but a contextual question. The author used the words internationalizing the issue in one particular context in the first paragraph of the passage, and now the question or the question setter is now asking you to discern why the phrase was used and what is the meaning behind it. Now if we go to question 67 also, let's see if it's a different passage or the same passage. Now question 67 is based on a different passage, and this has been written by Shrayana Bhattacharya in HarperCollins India. See the quality of sources. All sources are very reputed, journalistic in sense, and very credible. So this is the trend that has been for the last 3 to 4 NLSATs. And now in question number 67, the question setter is asking us, what does the author mean by the phrase a historical phenomena in the second paragraph of the passage? So you are also directed to where the word or where the phrase has been used. You do not have to mindlessly scroll through or go through the entire passage. The question directs you to the particular passage or the paragraph of the passage, and now you have to decode why the phrase was used and what is the meaning behind it. Now, author's agreement and disagreement. This has been seen in question number 13, 20 and 39. Let's go to question number 39. So question number 13 is again based on the passage Right to Sex that has been published in Bloomsbury. And to tell you a question stem, so why am I going through the questions in this video live? So that you understand what I am trying to say and what are the actual types of question stems that are asked, because it is meaningless to go over these things in abstract unless you understand that, oh, okay, these are the types of questions that are asked. So question 13 deals with author's agreement and disagreement, and the question is, which of the following is the author most likely to agree with? So there are a set of 4 statements given, and now you have to decide which statement would the author agree with based on the argument that has been made by the author. Let's see question 20 also. So opposite to question 13, now the question 20 is, which of the following is the author most likely to disagree with? Similarly, let's go over question 39 also, and this is the NLSAT 23 PYQ that I am discussing. And question 39 again is, which of the following is the author most likely to agree with? So to answer these questions, you first need to identify and understand the author's argument. And after you've understood the author's argument, the second point is go over the statements and then identify which is in line or in sync with the author's argument. 3 statements the author would mostly disagree with or would be irrelevant, and there would be only 1 statement with which the author would actually agree with based on the author's argument itself. The passages in NLSAT 2023 included literary and opinion-based texts, so heavy reliance on opinion pieces, op-eds, and also literary works like the one I talked about, Salman Rushdie. Contemporary socio-political commentary. Very important to note is that the passages in NLSAT are not very old ones or conventional ones or which do not have a contemporary relevance. All passages are from the recent happenings or from the latest events that are going on in India and abroad and are very contemporary with the socio-political commentary. This means that every passage has an interdisciplinary approach. This I talked about in a previous video also, how NLSAT is a very interdisciplinary paper. You will see passages which has a social implication also, a political implication also, a moral implication also, and might have an economic implication also. So the passages are never isolated from the broader context, but they're always interdisciplinary. Now let's move on to the current affairs section of 2023. So 23 questions linked to last 6 to 12 months. So this gives us an understanding or idea for NLSAT 26. What we have been suggesting NLTI students is you need to know current affairs from May 25 onwards till April 26. So these are the months that are non-negotiable for you and you have to work on that. Examples from the questions include the Nobel Prize winner of 2022, again relevant for NLSAT 26, the Nobel Prize winners of 2025. CBI probe on Oxfam India. There was some scam that had happened and the CBI had launched an inquiry into Oxfam. The Elephant Whisperers filming location. So Elephant Whisperers gained widespread importance in 22-23, and now the question asked where was the film actually produced and filmed. Questions are not answerable from passage alone. You need to have general knowledge because you will not find answers from the passages. And direct alignment with the current affairs syllabus, yes, very interdisciplinary, very recent, very contemporary, and very much relevant. Now let's talk about the critical reasoning section of NLSAT 2023. Has around 21 questions, assumption-based questions, question 37 and 46 that you can go through. Let me go through one question. So question 37 is based on something written by Vivek Shanbhag in Harper Perennial on Ghachar Ghachar. And this question, so to give you an idea of the question stem, the question goes like, the author's argument about how drinking at coffee house felt different from drinking at a low-lit bar assumes. So sometimes the question will be direct, which of the following is an assumption made by the author. Sometimes they will give you an argument that this is the one particular argument that you need to focus on. For example, in this question, the author has made an argument that drinking at coffee house feels different from drinking at a low-lit bar. And now the question setter is asking you what is the assumption behind the author's argument. These are the types of questions asked under assumption-based reasoning. And then we have strengthening weakening arguments. For example, question 6. Let me go over this question because strengthening weakening topic is very important for you. Now, question 6 goes like, which of the following, if true, most weakens Uluppi's response to Chuka's statements about ladies being sent to do unladylike business. So author might have made an argument about ladies being sent to unladylike business. And now the question is asking you what is the assumption behind this particular argument. Or the question is asking you, how do we go about weakening this particular claim that the author has made? Thirdly, we have supporting or reinforcing theories. Let's go over this particular topic because this is something new that most of you might not have understood properly. So now question 47 goes like, which of the following, if true, would provide the strongest support to Lysenko's criticism of Darwin's theory? So this passage, let me take you through the passage as well. So this passage is from A Dominant Character, A Radical Science in Restless Politics by J.B.S. Haldane, by Saman Subramanian, Simon and Schuster. So in this particular question, what the author is saying that this particular person, Lysenko, who has criticized Darwin's theory. Darwin's theory, I think, is survival of the fittest. So now, the question is asking you which of the following would lend support or lend criticism or would weaken or would support the argument or the criticism that has been made by Lysenko of the Darwin's theory. Inference-based questions, question 5, very direct questions. What is the inference that you can derive from the passage? Let me take you through question 5 also. So question 5 is, which of the following can be validly inferred from the information provided in the passage? So again, a very direct question. You have to identify the author's argument. You have to understand the passage to answer properly inference-based questions. Now let's move on to 2025 PYQ, that is NLSAT 2024. So in this question, you saw a fewer number of critical reasoning questions. And critical reasoning, by critical reasoning, I mean core critical reasoning questions like assumption, conclusion, strengthening, weakening, inference, etc. And there was an increased emphasis on English. English has grammar, English has vocabulary, English has text-based questions, English has perspective, main idea, all the questions these are the types of questions in English. So the number of questions that can be made in the English section is more. In current affairs, we had around 22 questions. Text and GK, we had text by Paul Kalanithi. We had Neelakanthan Anas on North-South divide. We have adoption rate of constitution. This is a GK question. And we also have a question on first elected communist government. That was question number 1. Now let's talk about the topic-wise division in 2024 PYQ. We had 1 question from vocabulary, 5 questions based on accept, 1 question on comparison, 1 on strengthening, weakening, 2 on principle, 6 on perspective, 2 on main point, 5 on weakening, and 13 questions on purpose. The one I talked before, what is the primary purpose behind writing this passage, or what is the primary purpose behind the author's argument. 13 were directly text-based, which of the following according to the passage is true, or which is the argument made by the author, and 4 were inference-based. So you can see much reliance on English comprehension and English language, and lesser reliance on critical reasoning core concepts. Talking about 2024 current affairs, we had a question on the Women's Reservation Bill, question 65. Let's go over question 65 now from the NLSAT 24 PYQ. The passage dealing with question 65 is an excerpt from the book written by Granville Austin, The Indian Constitution, Cornerstone of a Nation. So this book was discussing the Indian Constitution, this passage was discussing the Indian Constitution, and the question was, in September 2023, so you can see the chronology also, the news that happened in September 23 was relevant for the NLSAT exam that happened in April 2024. So in September 23, the Indian Parliament passed the Constitution 108th Amendment Bill. Which of the following does it pertain to? So now, or 128th, I'm sorry. So the 128th Amendment Bill was passed in September 23, and now the question was, what does this bill pertain to? And the bill pertained to the Women's Reservation Bill that introduced the reservations for women in several sectors. Now there was another question this was a sort of a static question mixed with a current affair question. So the passage for question 21 is GST on the entire price pool. So if you remember, GST was introduced on online betting in the form of a sin tax. So now the question was, who is the vice chairperson of the GST Council? This is a very difficult question because a lot of you might know who's the current chairperson of the GST Council, but not everyone might know who's the vice chairman. So very meticulously drafted question this was. Now ICJ provisional measures on Gaza. This is passage 2 and World Economic Forum Global Risk Report 2024. Here the question is given. India was ranked highest in the world for which of the following risks in the World Economic Forum's 2024 Global Risk Report. So this gives us an indication that all these indices like happiness index or freedom index or the cleanliness indexes are very important for our NLSAT preparation, and direct questions can be asked from this. Now we go about the latest or the recent PYQ or the paper that we have, and that is the 2025 PYQ. Now there was a weightage change. An increased importance was given to current affairs. We had never seen this before. We had around 28 questions in NLSAT 2025 directly from the general knowledge current affairs section. And also we saw an increased significance of critical reasoning, and a decreased significance on English comprehension. So very core concepts like assumption, conclusion, inference, assumption, and most importantly, strengthening, weakening saw an increase in the NLSAT 2025 PYQ. Clear rise in external knowledge and logical application. The questions remained the same statistically, but the breakdown changed because this year we saw a lot of questions on strengthening and weakening. An increased number on strengthening, weakening. If you see, the entire paper is flooded with questions of strengthening, weakening. So let's go over it topic by topic. Around 3 questions on comparison, 3 on strengthening, 2 on principle, 3 on perspective, 3 questions on main point of the passage, around 6 questions on weakening the author's argument, around 7 on purpose, around 9 questions based on text, and again around 11 questions based on your inference of the passage. So an increased focus given on your understanding and your critical thinking of the passage, covering core critical reasoning concepts. Now let's talk about the GK section. We had a question on the ICC warrants, so let's go over this question as well. What does the passage deal with? So the passage does not particularly deal with International Criminal Court. The passage deals with democratization, the passage deals with voters, and the passage deals with democracy. But the question is that which of the following was arrested in March 2025 in accordance with an arrest warrant issued by the International Criminal Court? And the answer was Rodrigo Duterte. Who is Rodrigo Duterte? He was the former president of Philippines. And why does the question assume importance? Because of his role, because of his crimes against humanity, because of his crimes or attempts to curb democracy in Philippines. That was why this question was asked in the paper, that too in a question based on democracy. So at first instance, you might think the question is nowhere related from the passage, but if you read deeply, the question is actually very much relevant to the passage and the paper, because this person, Rodrigo Duterte, who was arrested in accordance with an ICC warrant, was actually arrested for his attempts, for his crimes against humanity and his attempts at curbing democracy. Now, another question on US executive order on transgender athletes. Paris Olympics, very important. Obviously, this was one of the most expected topic for NLSAT 2025, that questions on Paris Olympics will be asked. We had questions on AI and copyright litigation, something on that was going on in Delhi High Court very recently when the paper happened. Let's go over the question stem for this also. Right. So the passage is on artificial intelligence, what artificial intelligence can do, what it can't, and how to tell the difference, by Arvind Narayan. Arvind Narayan is also a visiting faculty at the National Law School, Bangalore. So the question was, the 54th question was, who is the founder of the company that made DeepSeek? So DeepSeek at that time was an emerging AI, and the question was, who is the founder of DeepSeek? And question 64 was, which of the following organizations sued OpenAI, that is ChatGPT, in the Delhi High Court, alleging infringement of copyright? So you see, very interdisciplinary approach. One question that is completely current affairs based on the founder of DeepSeek, and one question that required you to have an interdisciplinary approach. You need to have knowledge of the legislations or the disputes going on around AI in India. Also, you need to know various publications that are happening in India around AI and what are the moral and the environmental concerns surrounding AI. This year, a lot of hue and cries there about AI using a lot of RAM storage. So know something about that also. What is the full form of RAM? How is it different from ROM? What is the environment? What are the environmental concerns issued associated with AI? Now another question. So this is the passage that was asked, Kanan Gill, Acts of God. Now reading now demands legal plus technological literacy. Very clear technological literacy, because this is a Gen Z generation that we are living in. We all are techies. We all are tech enthusiasts. So we need to know, we need to have some technological information, and also we need to have an interdisciplinary legal information, also the important cases going in India around the time. So the trends we can discern by going through the previous year papers is that the passage count and MCQ remain the same, 8 passages followed by 75 questions. But there has been a rising focus on current affairs. From 23 questions, there was an increase to 28 questions. And also there has been a rise on immediate recency. The questions were asked based on the recent topics that had happened or the very recent events that had taken place. And also raising questions increasingly embedded in legal disputes and scientific and AI contexts. As I already told you, you need to now have information about technological developments or advancements happening in India, across the globe, and also important disputes and cases going on in India. Our projections for NLSAT 26 are as follows. The questions in English comprehension, RC, that we popularly call, will have 25 to 30 questions, 25 to 28 questions in current affairs, and around 20 to 25 questions in CR. And these questions will come from these 4 to 5 high frequency areas that are assumption, premise, conclusions, inference, strengthening, weakening. Predictive focus for NLSAT 26, 2025 Nobel Prizes, very important. Statutory implementation from passage itself, global sports and governance, AI regulation, and digital rights. These are the topics that are very important for you, both for Part A and Part B. You can see passages across these themes in Part A, and you can also see essay topics in your Part B from these topics. Part A cutoffs. So a lot of you might want to know what the cutoffs are that we are looking at. So only 120 seats are there for the 3-year LLB cohort at NLS. Part A decides who qualifies for Part B, because Part B evaluation is only done in the ratio of 1:5. That means only 120 into 5, that is 600 sheets will be evaluated for Part B. So if you're not in the top 600 based on your Part A score, your Part B will not be evaluated. Waiting list conversion, around AIR 50 for general category and AIR 300 for other categories. And your Part A target should be a minimum of 55 marks, and a good score, a safe score, would be a minimum of 60 marks. Focus on passage-based inference, focus on recent affairs, and focus on strengthening, weakening logic. Now, to talk about the total cutoffs that we are looking at, so these are the cutoffs that were there last year for the respective categories. Last year saw a cutoff of 97 for the general category. 97 is a total of Part A and Part B. 87 for EWS, 77 for OBC, 72 for SC, and 68 for ST. This year we are expecting or predicting a minimum increase of 2 marks. Can go up to 3 also, but a minimum of 2 marks for each of the categories. So if you are a general person, and that too in a general you are a non-Karnataka male, that means outside Karnataka male candidate who does not have a horizontal women reservation and who also does not have any vertical reservation in the form of other categories. So the minimum score that you should be targeting is around 100. And how can you reach the score of 100? Score a minimum of 60 in Part A and a score of 40 in Part B. I know it sounds a little difficult on paper, but it can be done if you work hard for the next 2 months. Getting a 60 in Part A is quite doable. Target more than that if you are not that comfortable in Part B, because Part B is very subjective. Part B scores might vary based on the mocks that you are giving and the evaluations that you are receiving from your assessors, because the evaluation might differ. So target a minimum of 60, the higher the merrier, and a minimum of 40 in Part B to get to this cutoff, that is 100 for the general category. So the conclusion is that NLSAT Part A is not a GK test or a pure RC exam, but it is a highly reasoning based assessment of awareness of your comprehension and your logic, which is anchored in real world and legal social developments. You will not see isolated passages. You will see passages that always have multiple dimensions, be it economic, social, moral, philosophical, or psychological. So it's very important that you prepare strategically, aligned with the trends that are just explained in this video, and so that you clear the cutoff barrier and secure Part B evaluation. For now, your primary target should be to secure a Part B evaluation, and for that you need to target at least a 60 or a 55 in your Part A to be on the safer side. If you are scoring around 55, that is a good score to qualify for Part B evaluation, but target at least 60 to qualify or to clear the actual exam and reach the golden score of 100 for a final selection in the National Law School Bangalore. So that's it from this video. Thank you so much for joining in. I hope you found this useful. We will be coming up with the PYQ analysis of Part B as well. If you are looking for a PYQ compendium, you can look up NLTI's hard copy material. We will give you a Part A guide, we will give you a Part B guide, and also this compendium which comprises the previous year papers of NLSAT 20 from NLSAT 2022 to NLSAT 2025. So that's it from this video. Thank you so much for your support. If you like this video, do comment and do like the channel. Thank you so much.